Welcome everybody to episode 96 of Dork Tunes. Um, we are closing in we are so close to episode 100. Um, and this is going to got lots of nice things in the kind of in the firing pan. Just thinking about what we're going to do. I have, ideas. So it's bubbling under there. But yes, so this week I've got a fantastic guest, and I think I should ask them to introduce themselves.
Yeah, hi. My name is John Robert Matz, and I am a composer of a whole bunch of different games, but most recently, and maybe most notably, Chia.
Tchia, yes. So, John, about you, what I normally do is I ask a question to kind of start everybody off, and it's generally the same question. And I get loads of different answers for it. There obviously is never a correct or right answer, or wrong. But how did you get to be where you are today? As in, did you do the kind of standard kind of you went to university and you studied music and then you went to all these parties and you met all these people and then suddenly someone said do this game for us, you'll be brilliant, and then suddenly you're doing cheer.
Is that the standard? Is that the standard path?
No, no,
Okay.
trust me, I have had people who have just you know gone to parties, known people, and been like, hey, do you want to do this thing that I'm doing? And then, it kind of turns out to be something like Thomas Was Alone, and it goes on from there. So there's lots
Um,
of
I,
different.
I I will say that there's a decided lack of parties in my history here, for which I apologize to all party fans out there. But no, I started off. I went to so I've always done music in some capacity. I've always been like an artsy kid growing up, so I did like drama and musical theater and stuff like that in school. I was actually homeschooled, so I did a lot of
Oh, okay.
community theater stuff. And then when I got to college, I was going to major in music education. And I did major in music education. I wanted to be a like middle or high school band or choir director.
Oh,
That
okay.
was the goal.
Mhm.
And I had always dabbled in composing. And when I was in college, there were definitely like a lot of assignments that required you to write music as part of the assignment, and I would always get very carried away. And about like when I was probably like a freshman in college,
Mhm.
um, I had I definitely I keep saying definitely for some reason. It's a weird tick right now, and it's a thing that I'm very self conscious of. Just today, it's never been a thing before. But anyway, when I got to college, my sister had started to dabble in film as she and her friends from like theater company stuff had like what if we made movies and started making like small things. He wound up making a hour and 45-minute adaptation of part of Tolkien's The Silmarillion. And I got
Wow.
roped in to write the music for this thing. And so I'm like, it's the first big thing that I'm writing music for. And it's, just kind of for fun, but
Mm.
like very much like kind of cut my teeth on that. Got some, one of the people that worked on that wound up getting to work with actual like indie films. I say actual, we were making a real thing, but it's a bunch of high school kids. Um, got to work with some actual indie films that were filming in the Chicagoland area,
Mm.
and then had me audition for them because he'd played some of my music to them, and started feeling like, hey, maybe I can actually do some music, like actually writing music for various things. This could be a thing. And then when I was in college, I had the opportunity to have some of my music performed by our top ensembles at school and get to conduct it. And that was again like kind of an eye-opening thing. And when I graduated, I had a kind of a family tragedy that happened immediately on graduation. I wound up not getting to land a full-time teaching job, and so I
Mm.
had some time spare, and I wound up like looking at other stuff that I could do with that time in the music field, and that took me to the very first game that I scored, a game called Artemis: The Spaceship Bridge Simulator, which is a weird sci-fi game based very much on like classic Star Trek kind of tropes where you have like it's a multiplayer game that takes 5 people in a room with 5 computers. And at the time, I was reading a lot of video game websites. I'd played games my whole life. I'd never really thought about like writing music for them as much
Hmm.
until I started seriously composing concert and film music, or trying to do that stuff. And I came across this game in a on a website called Rock Paper Shotgun, very esteemed British video PC game publication.
Yeah.
And They had written up an article about it. It was like, this is a very fascinating game. It was like super early beta, and they had some videos of people playing it. And what I realized very quickly was um, the developer Tom Robertson was basically doing a little bit of a gambit. The game itself is a very kind of graphically rudimentary, like it's a very
Mhm.
rudimentary looking game. Uh, because mostly you're looking at like UI stuff. You're looking at radar displays and sensor contacts and power distribution nodes and stuff like that, rather than like a beautiful 3D model of a ship or something like that. So because most people are just looking at their computer that is a bridge station in the context of the game, um, there was not as much visual interest to kind of sell it. And the developer did a demo version, which he released for free, and had a promotion running where if you filmed yourself playing this game, you and your friends, and sent it to him, the demo version, he would give you a free copy of the full version. And what I realized is he was running this promotion. Everybody was just putting in their John Williams, their James Horner, their Jerry Goldsmith, you know, scores from films as the background music. And I'm like, but there's no music in this game. So I like half, I kind of like this game first was very intriguing, but like kind of like managed to wrangle my cousins to give it a try, and like set up a little LAN party in my basement, and we played it, and it was first really cool, second had no music as I
Mm.
suspected, and I had this terrible idea to gamble and make this promotional video, or this video of us playing it for his, basically, to help promote the game, but then to write the music that would accompany our adventure myself, and then be like, hey, if you like what you've heard here, because I know he's gonna have to watch the video to approve it,
Mm.
maybe you could maybe we could talk.
Yeah.
And sure enough, that was the in. I wrote the music for this thing. Originally I was gonna like use some music that I'd written for one of my sister's student films while she was at college, a sci-fi short film, and I'd use that. And then it turned out that that was nowhere near substantial enough for the like 7 or 9 minutes of runtime that our thing needed, so I just wrote an entirely original score, sent that off, and I got back a, hey, let's talk about this, this is really good, from Tom. And the rest kind of is history. So like,
Mm.
that was my in, was that. And then from there, it's stuff like the next big thing I worked on was Gunpoint, which is a really lovely 2D stealth puzzle game.
Mm.
And that was an open audition call.
Okay.
uh, and Tom Francis. I don't know why the first people I'm working with are all Toms, but Tom Francis was the developer designer of that thing, and he put out a call, and a lot of people auditioned, and he wound up picking me and Ryan Ike and Francisco Cerda to score that game. He basically used my cue that was, I think I wrote it in like an hour and a half, and it turned out to be the main theme. That's what he featured at the beginning and end to bookend the thing, and Ryan did all the in-game music, and Francisco did some of the stuff for like the shop and things like that between levels. And very kind of weird that you'd have 3 composers on a
Mhm.
project, but everybody pitched stuff, and it was an open call. And it was, I think, Tom's first game, so he just kind of got to pick and choose what he wanted. And that was a real fun time. I kind of like getting to show that at things like Indiecade and PAX and whatnot. Like then you start to meet people,
Mhm.
and you get to do stuff. I did a real stupid bit where like I brought a trumpet with, and I, we were showing the game, and I like played like live death music every time someone would get killed in the game because that was a fun joke. Um, but it definitely, like, you stick in people's minds when you do nonsense like that, and and then, like, it's kind of a slow, building of credits and
Mhm.
connections from there. You
Yeah.
know, I met I met Gordon McGlattery at a Shell in the Pit audio, as is a Vancouver sound designer and composer, and like brought him on for Fossil Echo, which was the first game that the Tchia developers Awaseb did.
Mhm.
And how I, like, and then, like, I've worked with him on a whole bunch of other stuff since then. Like, he'll bring me into stuff that they need a composer that is my style for, and I'll bring him into other things when they have like bandwidth and that they need a sound designer, they need
Mhm.
sound design folks. That has been, it really just kind of like turns into this fun little thing of like, hey, I'm going to work with my friends, or my friends are going to recommend me for something. I mean, I think it
Yeah.
was like Ben Prunty and Hyperdeck Soundworks guys like independently
Mm.
recommended me for Fossil Echo back in the day, and that, like, is a direct line from Fossil Echo to
Mhm.
their second game, Tchia,
Mhm.
working on this,
Mhm.
and that was, it's a weird process, and it's a weird path, and I know
It is.
whenever I talk to any other composers, like,
They've had it completely differently.
exactly.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
two paths are the same.
No.
And, when I talk to like kids in school that like want to know, how do I get in? And I'm like, well, write good music, try to find cool projects and cool people to work with. But
Mm.
then, other than that, like, this is how I did it. No
Mm.
two paths are the same,
No.
and I would even hesitate to say that I've made it yet. You're always striving forward, or, struggling to make headway, and, hopefully the next thing hits bigger than the last one, and
Mm.
you go from there.
Yeah. Something that you kind of touched on, a couple of things actually really quickly was, you know, as you move forward and the kind of experience that you get, you do meet other people and you make connections and all that kind of stuff. And it's very, very true. Who you meet and the connections that you make can make you kind of bring you forward further. It's like I have a game under my belt, my first one, credited and paid for the Switch, released about 3 years ago. And that came about from basically doing this. And going to the local kind of dev parties, as someone said it. I don't know whether you've ever heard of Game Music Connect. It was a thing that was on in London a few years, 10 years ago, maybe a bit more. um Jason Graves was there, Marty O'Donnell was there, Jesper Kidd was there. And I think it was Jason that basically said, go to the opening of a crisp packet, doesn't matter what it is, go to it, make connections. That's one of the best ways that you're going to find work. Totally. And then something else you said about your style. What is your style?
That's a hard question, because I,
I
I do
know.
feel like, if you look at like my discography, you look at the projects I've worked on, like,
Mm.
I'm wearing all sorts of different hats. Like, I've worked on stuff that is, mystical and fantastical. I worked on things that are kind of like rustic, um, medieval or fantasy music, like with the For the King series. In like Ambition, a Minuet and Power, I got to, like, spending years and years playing in orchestras in school. I got to write a score that was, straight up classical era, 1780s classical era music, with maybe a few throwbacks to the Baroque and a few things looking a little bit forward into the Romantic era,
Uh-huh.
and for a game that was set in, that's set in Paris on the eve of the French Revolution, and do that with live players and as close to a authentic sound as we can manage. Other stuff I've worked on is like, like weird, like sci-fi space games with,
Yeah.
synthesizers and like analog synths and weird kind of a retro futuristic sort of vibe, versus, stuff like Artemis, where it's, me trying to sound something like Horner or Goldsmith, but maybe with a little dash of, like, say, I don't know, Bear McCreary's Battlestar Galactica stuff mixed in there,
Yeah.
and some other things. Like, So really, I honestly like I maybe I struggle a little bit to like slap a specific label on what I do. Like when I think of, I think like any good composer really, like you can kind of think of like the things that they do well. Like if I
Mm,
you mentioned like Jason Graves earlier, and it's like
yeah.
Jason Graves, everyone thinks of Jason Graves as a he's a great horror game score. He does, he did Dead Space. He's done,
Mm,
he's done all the like the Dark Pictures games, or
mhm.
some other things. He's done a ton of stuff, but he's also done Moss, and like
Yes, I was
that's
just
this
about to say
beautiful,
he's done
yeah,
Moss.
beautiful, childhood. Like this feels like you're reading a bedtime story to your 10-year-old kid, about this brave little mouse, and there's beautiful songs in there, and there's like it's a fairy tale, and it's
Mm,
lovely, and
I
it's
have.
like, yeah, you can wear all kinds of different hats. You look at like,
Mhm.
my good friend Austin Wintory has done stuff that is like, radically different from project to project. Some of his stuff is, really big and bold. Other stuff is
Yeah,
ethereal and mystical, and other stuff is kind of like guttural and rustic. And like it really
another
depends
stuff
on the
is just
project.
cutesy. You know,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
you, you
I
look
I,
at
I
sorry, you look at the stuff that he's done like Journey and then Assassin's Creed, and then he's done something like Pode. And Pode is
mhm.
a lovely little game, on the Switch, and it's just like, huh.
Like did he, I think the game I think the game is long gone, but like I think it was like Deformers was one of his one that he did that was like it was
Mm,
and it's like a carnival ride of like weird like nonsense, and it's so good, and so different for a game that I think is gone now. But like
mm,
you can, so I think like when you ask like what is my style, and I think like if I had to like say anything a bit like specific, it's really like the things that I do well are like, melodic writing that sticks in your head, that you can remember, a sense of like vocal line to things.
mm.
And then like, if I could be so bold as to be like, say that like, maybe apart, to say that like, hey, I have these catchy melodies, that are hummable, that are memorable, and then like maybe like, uh mostly acoustic sounds. But
Yeah,
even then, I'm still dabbling in other stuff. I could like, it'd be easier for me to like look at a project and go like, okay, this is the thing that is not what I'm gonna be good at. Like it's like, oh, we want all rap music, or we want like all like,
metal.
yeah. I'm like, nah, he's not. It's not me. It's not gonna be what I'm gonna be good at. I can collaborate with someone. I could bring
Yeah,
some. I could suggest 6 people who would be great at this.
yeah,
But so yeah, you look at my stuff, and it's a whole variety of things,
it
from
is.
sci-fi to Ennio Morricone sounding nonsense to aping, Evangelion to to Tchia to For the
Yeah.
King, etc.
How do you approach the kind of different games that you do compose for?
That's a very big question. I how do I approach them?
Yeah, it's like because obviously every single one is going to sound different from the last, and you don't want it to sound like something that you've done previously. You know.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it really depends on like, what I really like to do when I have a new project that I am attached to, or that I'm auditioning for, pitching for, what have you. Uh, I really want to sit down and look at what makes it unique, what makes it interesting. I want to like see, give me the story, again, the characters, the tone of the thing, show
mhm,
me what the like, ideally like show me what the art is gonna be like.
yeah.
If I can see it in motion, that's even better, so I can kind of get a feel for how all these things play off each other.
Mhm,
Like, I want to get the best
yeah.
possible idea of what this whole project, what the vibe is for the game.
Mhm,
And then I'll go and like, hopefully somewhere in that along that process, I will come up with some kind of idea for a theme. If it's not the main theme of the game, then it's the character's theme that we're focused on, then, or whatnot. And from there, I will usually try to form something out of that. Like, very much like, I tend to compose very much like in a in a whole cloth approach. Like I'm hearing all the parts at the same time, like the timbres being used, the instruments being used, instrumentation, like that is just as vital as, the melody line and the harmonic
Mhm.
progression underneath and the kind of rhythmic stuff going on. So I tend to basically think of it like my brain spits out something that is effectively like 3D printed. Here's all the stuff,
Yeah.
and I will usually write like, 30 seconds, a minute, sometimes more if I'm getting carried away before I'll like show that to the
Mhm.
developer and be like, "Hey, how does this feel to you? This is how I see this. These are the reasons. Maybe I'll spell some of it out."
Mhm.
Um Sometimes they give me references that I will like use to some degree, or at least take into consideration. I'll listen to those references or look at them and then try to see if I can rectify that stuff with what I'm feeling. On a rare occasion, it's like, wow, that's not at all what I thought. But usually there's some kind of connection there. And
Yeah.
honestly, more often than not, there's no real like they don't really know what they want, or they have a vague idea of what they want.
Yeah.
And those are honestly sometimes the most exciting things,
Mhm.
when you can kind of like, especially when there's enough there that you can come up with a
Mhm.
sound yourself.
Yeah.
This is what this should sound like,
Yeah.
and then give that to them, and like hopefully that like clicks and connects and you're
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
And then you go from there.
I totally agree. When I did Truffle Pigs, it was about, for me, I needed to understand the characters and just understand kind of who they were and what they wanted and where they were going, the story, the setting, and then combine all that together. Like I did like three separate Spotify playlists, and then it was about kind of looking at who that I thought at the time would be a really good fit. Um, it ended up actually being Kevin Penkin did the score.
Oh yeah, Kevin, great.
Yeah,
I
Kevin's
was gonna
lovely.
say,
I've met him years ago at EGX in London. Um, I was doing a panel there, the first panel, and I gave him a spare ticket that I had, and then he brought along Lena Raine. So
excellent.
there's me sat with um, Richard Jacks and like Lena and Kevin. We're all just sitting having drinks, and I was like, I'm little old me sitting in like these powerhouses in the game music industry. I was just like, oh my God.
No, those are some very good people. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's good. That's no, Kevin is, I think I met Kevin for the first time, I think, at GDC at a
Mm,
party, a dinner before the
mhm,
Gang Awards, before the Game Audio Network Guild Awards, in like 20, it would have been 2017, because it was when Tchia was, it's not Tchia, when Fossil Echo was nominated for a couple of Gang Awards, and it was like,
mhm,
wow, this is like my first like big thing. And I got invited out to dinner by a friend who also invited Kevin, and like got to meet him, and a few other folks from Australia. And I worked with him on a few other things, like playing trumpet and like singing on some of his anime scores. But he's a real character.
yeah, he's
What a
hilarious.
great guy.
So with Chia now out in the wild and stuff, um, question I sometimes ask is, with the scores that you've created for games like Chia, do you go back afterwards and kind of go, hmm, or do you like some people? Some composers don't even listen to the stuff that they've done. They're like, I'm done. Bye. Do you go back and listen to your stuff, or do you kind of leave it a few years or a few months, or
Sometimes it really depends. I
mm,
sometimes listen to it. I tend to. Obviously, like once you've released something, and if you're trying to do any kind of, I guess other people might be impressive enough, or like built up enough of like a background that they can have people do this for them. But like, as I am like doing things like submitting, Chia for consideration and various awards and stuff, I'm sitting and listening to everything as I'm putting it together. So it's
mm,
definitely being played in my head, and then like doing things like putting together the soundtrack releases and choosing track orders, you're curing it forever there. So like once it's out, like yeah, you'll listen to it a bit, but I'm not like, it always feels a little egotistical to just be like put my music on the stereo and just sit back. Yeah, wow, that's
Sit
so
back, do the
good.
dishes.
Oh
Yeah.
man, what a genius. Just pure like that just feels a little bit much.
I
Just
have one. This is going to be possibly our last question. We've only got about 5 minutes left. But um, is there a soundtrack that you listen to or have listened to and thought that's my favorite? That's the one. That's the one that you kind of fall back on sometimes and you have to listen to it, not by yourself, not something by yourself, but by someone else. Like you think of a game soundtrack and you're like, Jesus, that's good.
that is a very hard question.
Mhm.
I have a lot that I have listened to
Mhm.
for various purposes.
Mhm.
I admit that I'm bad about listening to a lot of music. Like because um when I'm writing music, I'm
Mhm.
trying generally not to,
Yeah.
to fill my brain with other music
Mhm.
lest I steal it.
Yes.
Like I don't ever want
No,
to
you wouldn't be the first person to say that. Somebody else said it recently where they were like, when they're composing, they try not to listen to other people's music or maybe music general because they'll hear, the beat and they'll go, huh. And they'll suddenly find that they're writing in that style and they're like, no, this is not what I wanted. I need to get that out of
there's
my head.
do you know PDQ Bach?
Hmm?
Have you heard of PDQ? Okay. PDQ Bach is a creation of Peter Schickele, who's a musicologist of
Mhm.
some note, but he's a comedic creation. He's a fictional child of Johann Sebastian Bach, of whatever, of Johann Sebastian Bach's 20 odd children. He is the youngest and the oddest, I think is the phrase that goes around. He also like tends to just like actively rip off other music.
Uh-huh.
And there's all this stuff around this, and there's a quote that is a quote from a writer of the time, a critic of PDQ Box, who said, something to the effect of like, that he's at his most compelling and original when he can't remember how the music that he stole went, that he's stealing from went, or something to that effect. And so it's just like, yes, so that's the thing I've always tried to avoid. I don't listen to a lot of other music that much, but that said, there are things that I like to listen to and unwind with. I think of like things like Austin Wintory's score for Abzu is absolutely gorgeous. I know
Mhm.
everyone goes to Journey, but like Abzu, there's something about this thing that makes it incredibly nice to feel like you are immersed in water and like
Yeah.
unwind at the end of the day, or even go to sleep too. I always
I
joke that this music is so good for sleeping, but it's really tremendous. And then I think back, the other thing I'm gonna call out is Lenny Moore's score for a game called Outcast that came out in 1999, and features like the Moscow Symphony Orchestra and chorus, and it is a truly tremendous piece of music, or tremendous score, just tremendous music, and is probably the video game score that gave me some kind of idea and confidence that like, hey, I could write music for games.
yeah.
Because as much as the kind of stuff that like the other stuff that influenced me and inspired me, like the LucasArts iMuse stuff from their adventure games, Peter McConnell,
It is
Land,
amazing.
Bajakian, etc. Like those guys did amazing work with interactive music and scoring, but they're working with MIDI stuff.
Mm.
And I know that like Outcast is just a CD track being played, but what performances and what orchestration, and like Lenny Moore is, as a result, I'm gonna blame Lenny specifically for being like just an outsized inspiration for me to like look at, hey, I could write game music. This video game music can be lush and human and not, samples or synthesizers or
Very,
rendered out on
yeah.
NES chip.
I have literally got like a minute and a half left. So mine really quickly. Since 2015, I have had every single year there's been one album that has been my top played every single year on Spotify, which is Everybody's Gone for the Rapture.
Jessica Curry is tremendous.
Yes,
That is
she's a really good
like
friend, it's Jessica. Um,
I had the opportunity a while back to work on a remix album
mm,
of stuff from Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, and
yeah,
I
just
covered
amazing.
I get to do the main theme, and I got to do one of these things that I think of as like almost like a hymn like thing, and I know we're running out of time, but those are two of my like I that soundtrack is tremendous, and I listened to that a billion times. Anyway, we're running out of time.
I know
Still,
I could sit and talk
uh,
forever. It's just a shame, but
gosh,
main thing to say is thank you ever so much for taking the time to speak with me today, and really enjoy MagFest and don't get COVID.
I will do my best. It's gonna be interesting. Getting there will be fun. The weather is horrible here in the Midwest. We'll see how it all goes. But thank you very much for having me. Folks, listen to some really good music this year. 2013 or 2023, what am I saying, was amazing. 2024 is gonna be even better.
Thank you
Thank you for
very
having me.
much. And
All
good
right.
luck with everything. Take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye.